Good afternoon. This is an open hearing of the independent inquiry into matters relating to Afghanistan. The use of mobile telephones in the courtroom or annex is prohibited, save for a limited dispensation to the state core participant teams for the purpose of seeking instructions. Please could I ask you to ensure that all other mobile telephones have been switched off or turned to silent. Please may I draw your attention to the fact that the Chair of the Inquiry, the Right Honourable Sir Justice Haddon-Cave, has made a restriction order in relation to this hearing. Copies of the restriction order are available on request, but in substance the order has made the following effect. This order restricts attendance in the courtroom of the open hearings scheduled to hear evidence about the deletion of material a UK Special Forces Headquarters computer server known in these proceedings as ITS1. Attendance in the courtroom in which the hearing is to be held, namely court number 73, is restricted as follows. To members of the inquiry team and the recognised legal representatives of the core participants and the following witnesses when they are giving evidence. N5857, a contractor and the infrastructure engineer. N5858, a contractor and the manager of N5857. To members of the inquiry team and to the core participant recognised legal representatives only when the following witnesses are giving evidence. N5859, an officer in UKSF involved in information systems. N5595, who carries out internal investigation. N2311, UKSF information manager. Recognised legal representatives includes the legal team assisting the recognised legal representative in the discharge of the recognised legal representative's functions. This order prohibits by restriction, publication or dissemination the identities of any of the witnesses listed in paragraph 2 above or any information which might lead to their identification. The purpose of restricting attendance in the courtroom where the hearing is taking place is to protect both the witnesses' identities and this order. To ensure public access, a live video link of the hearing will be shown in the annex courtroom to which the public will have admittance. The live video link will not show the witnesses so that their physical appearance is concealed, but their evidence may be heard. In accordance with the General Restriction Order for Inquiry Hearings dated the 23rd of October 2023, no person may disclose, publish or broadcast in any form or by any means anything that is said or done in the inquiry hearing room until 10 minutes after it takes place. Counsel to the inquiry or the solicitor to the inquiry must be informed of any request to make an application for a restriction order in relation to anything that has been said or done in the inquiry hearing room in the preceding 10 minutes. Anything that was said or done during that period will then be subject to a restriction order prohibiting its disclosure, repetition or duplication until the Chair has finally determined the application. Where such a request is made, the courtroom may be cleared for the Chair to consider whether there has been a breach of any restriction order, and both the live video link to the annex and the live stream YouTube recording will be temporarily stopped. Once the Chair has determined the matter enclosed, the live video link to the annex room and to YouTube will be recommenced. The Chair will confirm if a restriction order is to be made and what steps, if any, are to be taken to ensure compliance. The above orders are subject to a penal notice. This means that any breach of any element of the restriction orders may be certified to the High Court or the Court of Session, who will have the power to fine or imprison anyone found to have been in breach of the order.
next witness is N5857. Could I ask that he takes the oath first, and then we'll go about identifying him through the red file in a moment.
Indeed. Thank you, Mr. Glasgow. Can the witness be sworn, please? Thank you.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
Now then, can I check that you've got all the material that you need with you? First, have you got your white file, which I think is the one you've just turned to, which has your witness statement and your exhibit set out within it?
Yes, I've got that.
And I hope you've also got a notepad and a pen, so that if we need to write anybody's name down, we're able to do that. That should be the blue pad just in front of you.
Yep, got it.
Brilliant. And what I'm also going to check is that if you look now to your right-hand side, you should have a red file. Can I just ask you to pick that up, and can I ask you to turn behind divider number 1? And you'll see there we've got a list of numbers down the left-hand side, and then alongside them we've got a series of what are called N numbers, and those are all written in black. Do you see that?
Yeah, seen.
What is written in red, I don't want you to read out, please. What I'd like to do is just to check this with you, please. If we start in the numbered column on the left-hand side, run your finger down to entry number 9. Do you see an entry there with the N number alongside it, N5857?
Yep.
And without reading it out, please, if you just look to the right-hand side and to the 2 columns there, do you see that your first name and your surname appear there alongside the entry for N5857?
Yeah, that's that.
All right.
And N5857, can I suggest you move the mic slightly to your left so it's right in front of you? Is that comfortable?
Is that any better?
That's very good indeed. Well done. Thank you.
You'll find it will pick up your voice and it will amplify it from where you are. But if anyone struggles to hear you, I'm sure they'll put a hand up and will be told, and I'll be able to help you, okay? Now then, first your witness statement. So your white file, please, sir, and your witness statement you've got there was a witness statement prepared by you following a request made by the inquiry, and that request was dated the 6th of October 2023. That'll be paragraph 1 of your witness statement, which I hope you've got just in front of you there.
Yeah, got it.
All right. Now, what I'd like to do, please, is to try to help you by going through your witness statement. We'll look at some of the entries, and what I'll do is direct you to particular paragraph numbers so you're able to know what I want to ask you about, and you can find the information there. If you get confused or lost, it's my fault. So if something happens and you're not quite sure where we are, what I'm asking about, would you tell me, and I'll make sure that I get you to the right place. All right. Now, first of all, what I'd like to do, please, is could I take you to your paragraph 7? And the reason for doing that is I just want to set out the role that you had between 2014 and 2017, because it's about that I'm going to be asking you some questions. And I think that what you've told us here is that you were working as a contractor for a civilian contractor company between that period, 2014 to 2017. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And again, I'm sorry to keep chopping and changing, but hopefully not too often. Back to the red file for a moment. Could I ask you to look in the red file this time, please, if you wouldn't mind, behind divider number 3?
Yeah, I'm there.
If you run your finger down the left-hand column in red, and again, I repeat, don't read out any of the entries in red. If you run your finger down to the company for whom you worked, do you see the entry in black alongside the name of that company is Civilian Contractor 4, which in some instances is abbreviated to CivCon 4?
Yeah, seen that.
So again, red file closed up and put to one side. We may look at it again, but for the moment, if you could, would you mind just closing it up, please, for the moment? Thank you so much. In your witness statement, you've referred to civilian contractor 4 as the company, and I'm going to do the same. But if we refer to a different company, or if you refer to a different company, would you just point it out so that we need to work out who it is?
Yeah, sure.
Now, so that company for whom you worked as a contractor between 2014 and 2017, were you employed as a third-line IT support engineer in relation to the ITS1 server that was used by UK Special Forces?
I was, yes.
And in your role as a third-line IT support engineer, are you what was termed a generalist infrastructure engineer?
Yes, I was.
And did you work as part of a team of on-site engineers embedded with the customer at a location which we know as UK SF4?
Yes.
Prior to joining the team that worked on the server ITS1 in 2014, had you ever before worked with UK Special Forces?
No.
And did you work throughout the period 2014 to 2017 with UK Special Forces as a contractor for the company?
That's correct, yes.
After ceasing to work for that civilian contractor in 2017, did you continue to work for UK SF4, but for a different organisation?
Yes.
Now then, I've just touched very briefly on the server known as ITS1, and what I'd like to do, please, with your help, is to look back in your statement for a moment to paragraph 6. So to page 2 and to paragraph 6. You describe the ITS1 server as being a secret IT system which was for classified use.
Correct. Yep.
It was a system which ran mostly commercially available services, but it was on a closed domain system.
Yes.
And it may be that everyone understands what commercially available services means, but as to a closed domain system, can you just explain that in layman's terms to us, please?
Because the system's classification as secret, this system was closed. It wouldn't be connected to the public internet, for instance.
And in terms of who owned the hardware that operated that particular system, did the company for whom you worked own the hardware, or was it the customer, the Ministry of Defence, who owned the hardware?
I think the customer, I'm pretty sure the customer owned the hardware. We supported them in their endeavours to keep it operational.
And what you've described in your paragraph 6, if we look to one line up from the bottom of page 2, do you see there that you've recorded that the ITS1 system ran on servers supported by a storage system, which you've defined as an array of numerous hard drives?
Yep.
In addition to the storage system, can you help us with this, please? Was the information that was stored on that storage system ever backed up either to disks or tapes, so there'd be a separate record of what was on it?
Yes, indeed, there was a robust backup system in place that carried out backups at regular frequencies.
And we'll deal with it in a little more detail later on, but insofar as what was backed up, was it all of the data on the ITS1 server, or certain parts of the data on the ITS1 server, or can you not help us?
Certainly all the user data was backed up. Maybe not all operating system data. That could have been recovered from a image CD, for instance.
And what about any data that might have been deleted by any of the users? Would that be recorded on the backups?
Indeed, any data which is live at the point of backup commencement would be captured in the backup system.
And when you say live at the backup commencement, just so we understand what you mean by live, I don't want to make a mistake here, but are we making a distinction between data that hasn't been deleted and data that has been deleted? Or does live data include anything that is in fact on the system?
If a user creates a document on a Monday night's backup will back that file up. If the user deletes the file on the Tuesday, Tuesday night's backup won't back up that file. It will no longer be present.
And in simple terms, was the purpose of the backups to ensure that with help from IT support engineers such as yourself, if it turned out a file had been deleted, which was actually still needed, it could be recovered by going back through the history of the backups?
That's correct, yes.
In other words, the Tuesday backup example won't help, but you might go to the Monday backup or the Sunday backup or the Saturday backup, but back as far as you needed to find the live version of the file that had gone missing.
Exactly that, exactly that.
And again, we'll come to it in a little more detail later on, but from what you're aware, how frequently were backups carried out on the ITS1 server?
Okay, there's a number of different frequencies configured. Each frequency had an associated retention period. So daily backups were carried out on a Monday through Friday. The Monday backup, for instance, would be retained for a period of 1 week. This is from memory, but I'm pretty strong on this. Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, those backups would be kept for 1 week. On top of that, on the weekend, a weekly backup would be conducted. The weekly backup had a different retention period. That would be retained for a month. 3 weekly backups would be conducted during the month with a retention period of a month. The last week of the month, or the first week of the month, whichever way it worked, a month, instead of a normal weekly backup, there'd be a monthly backup would be carried out. Now again, a monthly backup would have a different retention period. That would be retained for longer. This is where my brain gets a bit hazy. We either kept the monthlies for 2 or 3 months, and we had quarterly backups, or we kept the monthly backups for a lot longer. I can't remember if we had quarterlies or not. To finish this off, we had an annual backup was carried out. That had a retention period of infinite. What this means is the system which carries out the backups to disk or tape will never overwrite that data.
And when you say we kept the backups, is that we, the company for whom you worked, or is that we including UKSF as well as the company?
Yeah, sorry, the royal we, the UKSF military staff and civil service staff.
So it was the military that retained the backup, not the company for whom you worked?
Correct, yes.
Now, we went into that in a little more detail than I meant to, but thank you very much indeed. We were going to turn to it in any event, but whilst you're on a roll, I didn't want to stop you. Can I take you back in your statement for a moment? What I'd like to do is to have a little bit of help about the different lines of the IT support, because we've introduced you as the third line IT support engineer. And if we look to your statement, in particular at paragraph 8, we see that you define the differences between the 4 lines of IT support engineers. And can I just ask you a little bit about them very briefly, if I may?
Yeah, sure.
So the first line IT support, is that in effect the help desk, which is there to deal with day-to-day inquiries that might arise?
That's exactly that.
Okay. Once we go up a level to the second line, what's the difference between the first line and the second line?
Generally, they've got more rights on the system. They would be able to recover people's data, for instance, whereas the first line, they may just log a call, unlock a password, reset a printer.
And then if we escalate ourselves from the second line to what you were, which is third line IT support, are we then dealing with more technically complex areas of IT support?
Exactly that. The customer had a very good second line, so the idea was not much work should come to us, but occasionally it did.
And we remind ourselves from what you said before that you were embedded as part of the team of on-site engineers. So you actually worked within the building.
Yes, within the building.
Now, there's 4 lines of IT support. So the 4th line, what's the difference between you as a 3rd line IT support engineer and the 4th line, please?
Okay, in the organisation, we were generalists at 3rd line. What that meant was we generally had 10 years of experience, whereas the 2nd line, they may have been 3 to 5 years of experience. 1st line would be people starting off their career, answering telephones, booking calls and whatnot. 4th line, generally there's not too much difference between years of experience between 3rd and 4th line, but the 4th line team, they may be the authors of a particular piece of software. They may have been on the design team. Certainly they would have implemented it in the reference rig, so they're less generalist, more specialised.
More specialist. All right. And picking up on differences between the 3rd line and the 4th line, you told us that you were part of the team that was embedded at the customer location. It's the way you've described it. Were the 4th line, in fact, based back at the factory of the civilian contractor for whom you worked?
Exactly that, yes.
And because we're going to be able to hear from another witness later today, as to the leader of the 4th line team, was that someone who we know by the cipher N5858?
That is him, yeah. Oh, that is they.
It's okay. Insofar as the involvement that any of the IT support engineers, such as yourself, had with the customer data itself, okay? Did you know the nature of the information that was stored on ITS1?
We had an idea of the types of data, but not the actual content.
And when you say you had an idea of the types of data, is that because you might be aware of file names and the like?
Exactly that.
Did you deal directly with the data which was within those files?
No, never dealt directly with the data.
Did you ever have any reason to look at any of that particular data?
Only if specifically requested by the customer.
In terms of monitoring any request for assistance that might be made of the IT support team, if somebody within UKSF wanted the help of the company for whom you worked, how did they go about arranging that? Does that have to start with the 1st line help desk?
That's a formal method, yes. And we were actively encouraged to redirect the members of... Sometimes people come direct. Yeah, mate, can you do this? And we would have to politely tell them to ring the service desk, help desk.
And why was it necessary to send them back to the help desk rather than to do it on an ad hoc basis when someone asked for help?
Well, it's accountability, not auditability, really. That's the main one. If somebody asks me to do something and I go off home early, I forget to do it, for instance, and nobody can pick that up. Did I do the job? My colleagues won't know because I've gone. So accountability and auditability.
So when you start with the 1st line help desk and you speak to somebody who's working on that, once they take on board a request for assistance, does that then start a documentary trail of the request for assistance and then the steps that are gone through to give that assistance?
Exactly that. The help desk or the system, a fill-in-the-blanks type of system to guide them to gather the correct information from the user.
So ultimately, is there then a record that the company has of what they've been asked to do and what they have in fact done to help?
Exactly that.
And is that record saved by the company so that they've got access to it in due course if they need to?
The system which recorded requests for support was based on ITS1. The company had remote access. They could reach in and have a look at it, but it was owned. That data set was owned and managed by the customer. The company could look at it.
My fault, and it may be the way I phrased my question, and I apologise. It's just this. If, for example, I want some help with ITS1 and I'm a member of UKSF and I ring the first line support desk, is that call then logged to indicate the time and date that I've made the request and what the request is?
Exactly, yeah.
And that request is then escalated from the first line to the second line, and it may be that the second line can or cannot deal with the request.
That's the life cycle of an incident.
And if efforts are undertaken by the second line to try to deal with the problem, would that be recorded on the system so there would be a documentary trail of what people have tried to do?
Exactly. If an incident was passed up without comment, we would reject it because we don't know what's been tried.
Presumably then there's a record if it goes to the third line and on to the fourth line. Every time it goes through somebody's hands with the company, there is a record of what's been asked and what's happened.
Yes.
And is that sort of record kept by the company for whom you worked?
The record was stored on a customer system, so it was kept by the customer.
And
I think, I think requests which went back to the factory site may have been duplicated on a factory-held system, possibly.
okay. And just so we understand the nature of what goes on, is that what's referred to as a ticket being opened on the system?
Yes.
So if we talk about a ticket and someone having raised a ticket, that's because a request has been made, the company for whom you worked, to help UKSF.
Yes.
Can we just look very briefly at the information that you provided in your paragraph 12? And what you'd set out in your paragraph 12 was that the company for whom you worked was the design authority responsible for the architectural design of the system. And when we're talking about the system, that's ITS1.
That's correct.
And you've explained that the customer was the operating authority responsible for approving day-to-day operational system management decisions. Can I just ask you to explain the difference, if you're able to, between the company being the design authority and the customer being the operating authority?
Okay, when the customer wanted a system to be created, they would have put a set of requirements. Can we have a computer system to write emails, create documents, things like that? The company would have designed the system in the role of design authority to meet those requirements. So the company designs it, builds it, delivers it. But the day-to-day running of it, ITS1, is carried out by the customer staff in their role as the operating authority.
And what you've identified is that the customer as the operating authority is responsible for approving day-to-day operational system management decisions. Now, what actually does that mean? Can you help us with that, please?
Okay, this could be something as simple. Can I have another printer in that room? Can I have another computer? Can I have a new account? We've got a new user starting. So somebody within the customer chain will approve those type of activities.
And does that then become a request that's made by the customer of the company for whom you worked?
Not necessarily. Those type of requests would be standard requests. So there'll be standard procedures for those type of things. And as a standard procedure, the customer staff would more than likely carry those out themselves.
And what about if changes were to be made to the system or the server or the data on it? Who's responsible for approving that or requesting that that happen?
Okay. Initially, the change would go to the customer to approve because the customer don't. Somebody in the Good Ideas Club could have a wild idea that the customer don't want. So the customer have an internal process where they, yay or nay, assuming it's a yay, the customer's happy, they want that change to go on. That change would then go to the design authority. potentially to deliver if it requires a rework of the system of ITS1.
And insofar as who needed to be liaised with when it came to those sorts of decisions, if we look to your paragraph 12, can I just ask you this, please? You set out within the body of that paragraph that there was a system manager who was a civil servant working for the customer. And can you help us with the role that you understood that person to play and what they would do when it came to decisions about operational or management matters?
Yes, any changes went to the customer change manager. If it was a standard change, day-to-day type stuff, they would be referred internally to the system manager. The system, be approved locally and got on with. Example, new printer, new terminal, new user account.
And if it was more significant than just a standard request, what happened with that, please?
Okay, the change manager would raise it internally with somebody higher than them in the company, because if the change was bigger than that, it was going to go to the company, it would have highly likely to have incurred costs. So the military leadership team would have to get involved to assess the change. Is it value for money, etc.
And it may be we'll come back to ask you a little bit more about this process in due course when we talk about ITS1. But were you yourself involved in this process where there might be discussions between the company and the customer, so between the company for whom you worked in UKSF, about changes to ITS1?
Generally not, no. We might get involved advising the customer to word their changes correct appropriately to avoid any misunderstandings and whatnot.
Now, can I change topic slightly? What I'd like to do is to ask you a little bit about S-delete, please. And you'll see that that is set out in your statement, paragraphs 13 onwards. Can we just look together for a moment to paragraph 14? Because you record there that there was a major technical upgrade and that there was a plan in early 2016 to migrate customer data from one storage solution to another. So just asking you about that for a moment, if I can. Is that something that you were aware of at the time, back in 2016?
Yes, that was an incoming change as far as we were concerned.
And when moving from one storage solution to another, was that going to see the contents of ITS1 taken from one storage solution to another?
Exactly that.
And was the new storage solution, which you've identified as being more advanced, was that known as 3PAR?
Yes.
Was this the subject of discussion within the IT support team that you worked? Did you and your fellow team members discuss the plan to effect the migration and how it might go about being done?
The plan was, within the company, we had the fourth line support team, as I discussed. What we also had, and it's probably not in here, we had a fourth line change team. They were the ones who were going to plan the migration. They were the ones who were planning to bring the hardware to site, set it to work, etc. My team on site, or me and my colleagues, we were the system integrators. We were going to receive the system, troubleshoot it, get to grips with it, and run with it on a day-to-day basis. So we had input into the plan, but we weren't the authors of the migration plan.
Now, in order that you and some of your team members could be ready to assist with the migration, were you sent on a course that was run to explain how 3PAR worked?
Yes, we were.
And is this a course that you attended with your colleague N5858? And if it helps, I'm looking to your paragraph 15.
Yes, I remember that.
Was this in fact a 5-day training course?
Yes.
And was this run by the company that sold the 3-PAR system?
It was, yes.
Now, in terms of your attendance at that course, I think that you've been able to look at emails that you've got available to yourself, and did they lead you to conclude that the course you attended was in May of 2016?
Yeah, I agree with that.
And for anyone who wants to check, if we just look for a moment behind divider number 9 and to what is recorded in my divider as page 2, you'll see an email on the 6th of May of 2016 which identifies 3 different course dates. Thank you very much indeed. Course 1, if you look to the right-hand side just to check that we're looking at the same thing, please. If you see to the screen, do you see towards the bottom half of the screen an email on the 6th of May sent at 9:48 in the morning? Do we see it identifies course dates? One of the course dates, course date 1, being between the 23rd and the 27th of May of 2016.
Yep, seen.
And if you look to the list of attendees, you'll see written out alongside course 1, do we have IIA 29, but then N5858 and yourself N5857.
Yep, seen.
So the dates that you attended the course between the 23rd and the 27th of May 2016. As part of the course that was run by the company that sold 3PAR, did they assist you with how best to go about migrating the data from ITS1 onto 3PAR?
It was part of the discussion. The course had a particular content list which we went through, but the guy tailored the course slightly to include elements which might be useful for us to migrate from data storage 1 to 3PAR.
Now, as part of that tailoring process, were you advised about how to zero already deleted data, and in particular the use of a software tool known as S-delete?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, what was it that you were told about S-delete, and why were you told it was useful in the migration process?
It would assist with the efficiency of storing data on the new 3PAR system.
How would it assist with the efficiency of storing the data on the new system?
Right, the 3PAR brought some efficiencies with it. One of these efficiencies, I'll try not to get technical, but one of the efficiencies shrank the data to only the size of the used data. For instance, if there was a large piece of unused data, rather than keep that big empty space ring-fenced for a particular server, 3PAR may shrink that volume down so it's just the size of the used data, and through efficiencies that space is available for other servers, other functionality that the customer may wish to use.
And apart from assisting with the actual storage space available on the new 3PAR system, by only sending across the data that you want to keep, does that speed up the actual process of the migration?
We were led to believe that, yes, it should have sped up the data migration because effectively there's less data to write on the new system. We're only writing the live data. We're not writing ones and zeros, which covers deleted data.
Now, in order to try to explain it, can we just look to the manual that was provided to you? It's going to be your second exhibit, and in particular to chapter 9 of the course manual. Can I allow you to find your place? And what I'd like to look at, please, are the 8th and the 9th slides. And so unhelpfully, this part of the bundle hasn't worked with the pagination. In the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see the 9th slide is in fact numbered 9.9, so chapter 9, slide 9. But I'm going to look at the slide before that as well as that slide. Can I check, sir, that you've got slides which are headed 0 detect thin persistence, use case 2 of 4 and 3 of 4? So slides 8 and 9, have you got those available to you?
Yes, those titles match.
And I'm sorry if this trespasses on the area of not wanting to get too technical. It's my fault, not yours. But if we look at first slide number 8, we can see on the left-hand side the host view, and then on the right-hand side the array view. And could you just explain to us the difference between the host view and the array view before we go anywhere?
Of course, yes. Host view in this instance refers to a server, a Windows server, for instance. So in this example, on the left-hand side, the Windows server believes it's got 1 gigabyte of data written. On the right-hand side, we've got array view. In this instance, that would be the 3-par. And in this example, the 3-par thinks that the server's got 2 gigabytes of data written, i.e. there's a mismatch at this point.
And how would that occur when the server appears to have half the data on it than the array view does?
Okay, this is through data deletion, either by the users or by the system. Once data is deleted, the server will mark that down as that space is available to me. If I need to create data, I've got 3 gigabyte available in this example.
So if we just look at the host view for a moment, thinking of the 4 gigabytes of data available within the host view, in this example, we've got 1 gig of data which is recorded to it, and what it believes to be 3 gigs of data available, although only 1 gig of that is actually deleted data.
That's correct, yes.
And then when we look across to the array view, when the array view tries to work out what is available on the server, it includes not only the live data, but also the deleted data.
Exactly this, the 3-par, the storage, has no concept of a C drive, a Word document, an Excel document. It either sees ones and zeros or it doesn't.
And presumably the danger is that as you keep writing and then deleting data on the host view, eventually the array view would become completely swamped with data, much of which isn't needed.
Exactly that. And
if we look to slide number 9 for a moment, and again trying to avoid getting too technical, are you able to help us with how it is that sdelete zeros data in order to avoid unnecessary data being transferred in a migration process?
yes, I'll give this one a go. So in this, the 3-par to recover the data, to reclaim storage space, the 3-par needs to see a big string of zeros. If it sees ones and zeros, as in the previous slide, it assumes the data is valid. I'm not going to reclaim that. That's in use. So to put a string of zeros onto the storage, this is what sdelete does in its zeroized form.
So in effect, unused space gets filled up with zeros, and any deleted space is overwritten with zeros. So when the migration happens, the zeros don't go across.
That's exactly it.
So in effect, you only take what you want to take with you. You don't bring your dirty laundry at the same time.
Exactly that.
That's probably not technical enough for you, but I'm sorry.
It's good enough.
Can I just check what your understanding was then at the end of the 3-par course? Was it clear in your mind that only already deleted data would be affected if you ran sdelete.
That's definitely my understanding, yes.
So just so we're clear, if you run sdelete on the host view server, for example, that we've been looking at in the slide, you're only going to overwrite free space or areas that are filled with deleted data. You don't end up overwriting and therefore wiping someone's live data.
Exactly that, yes. We wouldn't do that.
And as you said, that you were told would make the migration process quicker, and obviously is better for the new server that you're migrating to because you only take what you want.
Yes.
And were you advised that in order to effect a more effective and smoother transfer from the old system to the new, that the best way to do that would be to run sdelete before the migration?
That was my takeaway from the course, yes.
And can I just check this? When I ask about running sdelete before the migration, is that a process that's done and completed before the migration starts, or does it become part of the migration itself?
In ideal world, it only needs to be done once prior to migration.
So sdelete is run, the unused space is filled with zeros,
Yes,
the deleted data is filled with zeros, and once that's complete, then the migration to the new 3-par server can begin.
that's it.
Can I ask, looking at page 9, what the technical reason is for filling both the deleted material plus the empty space with zeros? Is that in order to flag up in the transfer that the whole of that, those 3 boxes, should be transferred, they're all the same?
That's exactly that, so yes. The sdelete command, when it runs, it doesn't know how much of the disk is truly free and zeroed, or how much is free and may contain deleted data. What it actually does, sorry, not too technical, it creates a file and fills it full of zeros, and the file grows and grows and grows until it takes up the entire available space, and then the file is got rid of.
So even on the previous, on the previous page, page 8, on the sheet, the array view seems to suggest it does know what is empty. That is not the case, is that right?
The array knows what's empty,
But
the sdelete isn't clever enough to only overwrite the bits that it would need to. It does seem a bit inefficient to zero the entire lot. In this example, yes, a cleverer way would just zero the bits you need. But those bits you need aren't necessarily going to be in one lump. It'll be scattered all over the place.
thank you. Sorry, Mr. Garza.
If we just look to slide 13 for a moment, please, sir, and it may be that the answer is best set out by you in your paragraph 23 when we also look to slide 13. So could I invite you to look to your paragraph 23 for a moment? And if you look to, in particular, the last 3 lines of paragraph 23, and I'll just let you catch up. Slide in. 2 more slides on, please. Thank you very much indeed. We've got it here.
Yeah, sorry, I've read 23.
If we just look to slide 13 that was presented to you on the course, and it may be that this answers the chair's question, and your understanding after you'd had the necessary training, is it that what in effect sdelete does is, having filled empty space and deleted files all with zeros, the sdelete tool then groups all of that into one big file, which it then deletes itself. So in a sense, the sdelete has double checked what it's taking with it, what doesn't need to be taken.
Yes, that's it.
So we can see here, identified in the slide, use sdelete to securely overwrite the deleted data space with zeros and reclaim the space. In other words, when it comes to the transfer, if you run sdelete, you've got the live files ready and a lot of free space remaining and no other clutter there.
That's exactly the purpose, yes.
Can I just take you back for a moment to your paragraph 17, and thank you for the help with the slides. Having attended the course, you've identified in your paragraph 17 that you and your colleagues reflected on what you had learned and that you discussed together the recommendation of using sdelete to permanently delete free space or deleted data. What I'd like to ask you about is this. Was this approach discussed with the customer? In other words, did you and your team speak to UKSF about running the sdelete tool?
Yes, I think the initial discussion was within the team, and then we would have invited the system manager, of course, in the first instance. I'm going from memory here, but it would have, the system manager is the appropriate person we would have brought on board.
Other than the system manager, were there discussions with other people at UKSF about running sdelete on the server?
I think when it came closer to the time of running it, my colleague discussed it with at least one of the information managers.
Why did you think it appropriate to discuss with the system manager of UKSF about using an application that would permanently delete data from their servers?
The activity of using the tool was a non-standard activity. It needed to be discussed with the customer. It wasn't just a get on with it type of task.
Would it be normal to delete data permanently from a customer's server without discussing it with them first?
Definitely not. No, not at all.
And it may be obvious to you why not, but I'm going to ask you why and betray my ignorance of the process, but why would you not delete the customer's data without telling them about it?
We like being alive. It's not something it's not a route we would go down.
And of course, I remind everyone that it's the deleting of already deleted data, but does that make any difference to you? If you're talking about permanently wiping deleted data, is that something that you or the company for whom you worked would have done without checking with the customer first?
No, it's not a usual thing we would have done. Hence the reason to discuss with the customer.
When it came to sdelete, were you aware of the sdelete application before going on the 3-part course in May of 2016?
No, I was aware of the suite of tools which it belonged to, but not that particular application.
And it may be that it's obvious from what you've just told us, but had you ever run the application sdelete before?
No, I don't believe so. Not before the course.
Are you aware of whether sdelete had been run by your company on any previous occasions on the ITS1 server?
Not during my tenure at the company prior to that point.
So not between 2014 up to when we're talking about 2016?
Correct.
Can I ask, is deletion or overwriting of deleted data part of a normal data migration process?
It all depends on how the data migration would be carried out. If the data migration is carried out at let's say a file level, this means a program would look at a group of files in existence. If there are 10 files, I'm going to copy 10 files over there. A file level migration, which my company had done numerous times in 2015 when I was at that company, a file level backup would only take files that exist. It would not look at deleted data. If the migration was carried out at binary level, ones and zeros, then at ones and zeros, the migration doesn't care whether the file is live, in a recycle bin, deleted. It will just move it.
Does it depend whether one's doing a mirror or a non-mirror transfer?
Largely whether it's a file level backup. A file level backup will ignore deleted data. A binary level backup doesn't care. If it's a 1, it moves. If it's a 0, it moves.
Thank you.
You mentioned that the running of SDelete was a non-standard action. And can I just ask you to think back to the ticket process that we spoke about 20 minutes or so ago? When it came to a non-standard action such as running SDelete, and in your discussions with the customer, would any of this have been recorded, for example, in a ticket? Or is that not how the ticket system would be used?
Yes, the ticketing system would be used for break fix, my printer is broken, and it would also be used for change activities and non-standard change. This would have been ticketed.
So again, there'd then be an auditable account of what had happened.
Exactly that, yes.
And do you know whether, or have you seen a ticket in respect of this particular running of a non-standard action?
It's going back a while. I believe I saw a ticket. I'm fairly convinced I probably raised it. I can't remember. I would need to look at the original database from back in, which I'm not going to be able to do.
You mentioned in addition to raising this with the customers, that's the UKSF system manager, you said that you'd also believed you'd informed other people of what you were going to do.
That's correct, yes.
And when you spoke about other people, is that other people within UKSF, so within the customer?
My chain of command within the customer was to the system manager. We would have spoken to them in the first instance. As we were raising a change, we may well have spoken to the change manager. Outside of the customer, we would have discussed it with our engineering team lead, N5858.
Can I just ask you to look in your statement to paragraph 26 for a moment, please? I just allow you a moment to find your place and to look at that.
Yes, I remember this paragraph.
When it came to the running of SDelete itself, did you alert anyone within UKSF that you were planning to run it on any given day on any particular part of the server?
Yes, definitely. By the nature of what we were doing, when you run this tool, as described in the slide pack earlier, it creates a file. That file grows and grows and grows, eventually filling the particular drive letter, disk drive, fills it to 100%, then deletes the file. As part of the monitoring of ITS1 server, there was a dashboard type system on display within the main office, which the military and civil service managers could see. Amongst that dashboard would have been disk utilization for critical disk datasets. For instance, if somebody would fill the main data drive to 100%, people would be unable to create new data. That would be a problem. Therefore, the customer monitor this. So what we were doing would have sent our traffic light system flashing amber and red, which would have caused great concern to the customer. So definitely before running this, we would have spoken to the managers in the office. We would have spoken to the military managers, the system manager. My colleague got on well with the information managers, so he raised it with at least one of them.
And when it came to speaking to those individuals to alert them to what you were about to do, did you explain what you were going to do?
I can't remember, this was a long time ago.
Now, you just mentioned a traffic light system, and I want to avoid any misunderstanding here, because you've spoken of the dashboard which was viewable by people in the main room. Is that more than one dashboard, or simply one dashboard for everyone to look at?
It was one dashboard with lots of icons coloured for different parts of the system. There may have been a dashboard for email services, for instance.
And was this monitored?
Yes, it was a big screen in the office. Everybody could see it.
And when it came to creating this one massive file which would ultimately fill the server to 100%, was that something that would appear on the screen for people to observe?
It would appear on the large screen in the main floor plate where all the system managers worked.
And was it sufficiently detailed so that it actually gave a number in a percentage term that ran up to 100?
I think so.
And you'd said that whilst this was ongoing, people wouldn't be able to store additional data to the server.
Sorry. If the system had reached 100% accidentally and stayed there for a period of time, this would have caused problems. S-delete grew, and the split second it reached 100%, bang, delete, back to the original system utilisation.
As the server got fuller, would it slow down?
There is a potential for the system to slow down, yes. There's some older documents that suggest anything above 85% or 90% utilisation can cause system slowdown. That's why we have these dashboards to monitor for this type of eventuality.
And in terms of monitoring the dashboard and therefore monitoring the progress of S-delete when it was being run, who was doing the monitoring, please?
Dedicated monitoring was myself and my colleague. Passive monitoring was anybody else in the floor plate who cared to look up at the large dashboard. The service desk, for instance, their desks were sat underneath the large dashboard. They could see instantly if any problems occurring and raise the alert appropriately.
And can I just check about this with you, please? Because we're going to hear, obviously, from your colleague N5858 in a moment. Did you have discussions with him about S-delete and about the progress of S-delete whilst it was being run?
I think so. I'm pretty sure we discussed yeah. Yes.
Can I just ask you to pick the red file up again on your right-hand side for a moment and to look behind divider number 2. Starting with the sequential numbers on the left-hand side, if you run your finger down to number 11, to N5859, and again, please don't read out any of the details in red, but could you just read those to yourselves for a moment, please?
Sorry, which divider am I behind?
I'm so sorry, I said divider number 2, and I meant divider number 1, of course. So divider number 1, run your finger down the left-hand column to entry number 11 for N5859. And just reading to yourself the name that's written in red. Is that a name that you recognise as being someone you had dealings with as a part of the customer team at UKSF?
On occasion, yes.
Do you know whether or not you discussed with that individual the use of S-delete?
Yes, it was discussed. Not before. I don't believe that person's job role was related to the day-to-day running of the system, so that person wasn't somebody we would have spoken to before the event.
But it was discussed with him later?
Yes.
Can I just take you back to that particular list again for a moment? And can I ask you to look at the names in red and to read them to yourself, please? Could I just ask you to see whether any of the names that are set out there are the names of the people with whom you discussed the running of S-delete?
Yeah, I recognise some of the names there, yes.
Now, as to the names, I don't want to know at the moment whether you recognise them. Can I ask you this question? When you look at that list of names, are any of those the names of a person or people with whom you discussed the running of S-delete before it was run?
Yes, some of these names they were discussed with before.
Now, what I'd like to ask you to do is to give us the N number and not the names, please. So thank you very much indeed. I'm sorry, it's a slightly laborious process.
No, understandably. Line 10, N5858, as we've already discussed.
Of course, your colleague.
Yep. N5861, it's line 13.
That's another colleague. That's another colleague.
Possibly line 14, 5862, but I'm getting a bit hazy here.
Are both of those, that's N5861 and 5862, are both of those colleagues of yours?
They were managerial level. Civilian contractors.
Can I ask you to focus on this, because you told us that you discussed the use of S-delete with members of the customer team, in other words, with members of UK SF.
Those names aren't listed here.
Do you remember the names of those individuals? And again, I don't want you to tell us what they are, but do you remember today the names of any of the members of UKSF with whom you discussed the tool?
Would have been the person known as the system manager. It would have been at warrant officer level within the customer management team. Most of these names are officer level. They lived in a different part of the building, mostly. Different part of... They didn't work in the same place as us, engineers.
As to the name or names of any of those individuals, are you able to write them down in the blue notepad for us that was made available to you? If you don't know their names, then please say so. But if you do, if you're able to write it down, that will be helpful.
I remember one name, but I can't remember the names of the people at the time.
Please don't say the name out loud. Could I ask you to write the name down on the piece of paper, please?
Actually, sorry, I'm guessing as to who was in what post at what time here. I can't remember the names of the military people in post at the time.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure this name was one of them.
Well, if you can write the name down, and we'll record your answer, of course, that you're only pretty sure that this name is one of them.
The other one. It's another one.
Just said, is there another one? Take your time.
Yeah. There was at least 4 or 5 warrant officers or staff sergeants at that level within the floor plan. I'm just struggling to remember who was. I did a number of years there, and people moved, people came back, and
In case it helps, just look again to the red file and behind divider number 1, and look to the second page of the list that we just looked at, which deals with an additional series of names. And again, please don't read any name out to us. Could I ask you to look at that list?
possible. Yeah, there's one possible one here.
And what's the IIA reference of that person, please? So look in the column headed IIA numbers.
Number 8. This is a possible.
So IIA 8
That's
is a
correct.
possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
They might have worked in the other building, you see. That person's had different ranks. People within the customer group, because of their specialisation, they don't, when they get promoted, they tend not to disappear to a different part of the armed forces. They're kept within house, so they... I've discussed dashboards with this person before. He's come and said the dashboard's red. What the hell's going on? Was it in relation to this? I can't remember.
Okay.
So I am, rather than just guess, I'll just put the one name in.
Okay, and can I just check this? The name of the person that you've written down, are you able to write down either their rank, if they have one, or a post that you understood that person to hold?
Can I have a look at the...
Of course, in case it helps, I think I can assist everyone straight away. If you look to the very bottom of the list that you've got on the second page behind tab number 1, do you see alongside the entry for IIA 101 the name that you've just written down? You may not have seen it because it's in handwriting, and that's my fault.
Yeah,
I should have asked you to look to the handwritten editions.
Yeah. It wasn't in the copy I'd earlier, so I wasn't expecting it.
Right. So the name that you've just recorded on the piece of paper is in fact recorded on page 2 behind divider number 1 of the red file alongside the cipher IIA 101.
Correct, yeah.
Thank you very much indeed.
I've probably got a little bit to add on this. I remember why I'm so hazy on who I spoke to. It wasn't me who did the speaking. It was my colleague who was the team lead. He did all the top cover, liaison, speaking with people. I was on the keys.
Right, so that's N5858,
No,
Was it-
no,
another person.
another person.
All right. Well, in a minute, actually, whilst you're there, could you write the name of that person down, please? Or if you've seen it elsewhere, anywhere on the 2 pages behind divider number 1, could you give us the relevant number?
IIA 11.
Thank you very much indeed. Can we just look at another of your exhibits, this time to your exhibit number 3, and can we look to the last page of that particular exhibit? Because there is a series of messages which you exchanged with N5858. Those are messages that you exchanged together on the 14th of June of 2016. And it may be that this will help give us a date that we can identify of potential relevance. So this is an entry from a series of exchanges you had with N5858 on the 14th of June of 2016. And do we see an entry from you timed at 17:55 towards the bottom of that page?
Seen.
And do we see there what you've written, first pass at S-delete on a VM so slow?
That's correct. I see that.
And it may be obvious what that relates to, but could you just explain to us what you have written and why you wrote it, please?
What I've written is the first usage of S-delete on a virtual machine appeared to be slow. That's what I've written. I think the context for this is probably a dry run or rehearsal of the syntax to make sure that it does indeed do what the course notes says it does.
So just so we're clear about that, when it records first pass at S-delete on a VM, that's a virtual machine rather than actually on ITS1 itself.
ITS1 as a system comprised of lots of servers, both physical and virtual.
Right.
I think for this instance, we used a spare virtual machine, which wasn't part of the operational ITS1. It was more a spare virtual machine, which was used for test type stuff.
So did that enable you to run the program to see how it performed and whether it would work?
Exactly that.
In terms of the actual running of the S-delete tool on the server, do you know when that happened?
This is when it was done for real with all the drives, all the servers. I can't tell you. I'm guessing it was a good while later than the courses.
Do you know how long it took?
As I said earlier, the ITS1 comprised of a number of physical and a number of virtual servers. I won't go into the actual number because it delves into the capabilities of the customer. I don't want to go there. But there was a number of servers. Each of those servers may have had multiple drives, an operating system disk, an application disk, a data disk, for example. So each server would have had at least 3 drive letters to number crunch against. We had, as I said, a number which I won't guess and I won't quote actual numbers. Some individual drives may have took minutes. For instance, a small disk on a fast part of the system may have took minutes. A larger part of the system may have took a couple of hours. So I vaguely remember from start to finish, it might have been a couple of days.
Now, I'm told that the stenographer would like a break, and that might be a convenient moment to take a short break for this afternoon. I'm in your hands, sir, as to how long a break we need, but I suspect at least 10 minutes for the stenographer, who's been going now for an hour and 20 minutes or so.
Indeed. Let's break, shall we, until 20 to 4, please. Can the witness be escorted? Please don't discuss your evidence with anybody during the break. Thank you very much. Mr. Glasgow.
Sir, thank you. I'd just like to check and to have your help, please, about two bits of information you've just given us, which relates to when S-Delete was run and how long it might have taken to run it. What I'd like to do is to just direct your attention to some entries in your statement to see if that helps, and I'm going to ask you about it. So, dealing first with when S-Delete might have been run on the system, can I take you to paragraph 29 and to the last sentence within that paragraph, and can I ask you to read that to yourself for a moment?
Yeah, quite a vague statement there, isn't it?
Well,
With
it's your
relation to
statement,
time.
which is why I've asked you to look at it. Sorry.
Yes, no, it is.
I can try and be more specific.
No,
if you
no,
want.
it's anyway, the last sentence referring to time, this took place some weeks or months later, is very vague.
Yes.
I
So,
can't remember when it took place.
but to the best of your recollection, is what's recorded here that the full migration took place some weeks or months after S-Delete had been run.
Yes.
And it may be that with other means we can work a back calculation out to see if we can be a bit more specific, okay? But I just wanted to have your help with your recollection. The other thing that I'd like to ask you, please, is to consider how long it might have taken for that operation to take place. That's the running of S-Delete. Now, you told us that understandably different servers will take different lengths of time depending on how much data is upon them. So you'd indicated that one particular server that might be working quickly, that didn't have a lot of data, could take minutes. Other servers could take hours or longer. Okay? Can I just take you to paragraph 27, please, to the last sentence of that paragraph? And it records that the S-Delete tool was run during the daytime. And then if I ask you to read the rest of that sentence to yourself for a moment, please. Now, it may be that you're going to tell me that that's very vague as well, but what I'd like to ask you is this. Having looked at the last sentence of your paragraph 27, does that give you a better idea of how long it took to run S-Delete on the server before it was complete?
In total, start to finish, I think from memory, best recollections, etc., just under 3 working days.
And is that 3 working days back to back, or is that 3 working days spread out over a period of time to accommodate when other people might need to be doing things on the server?
I think it was over a single week. Pretty sure it was. Probably Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, of whichever week.
Now, what I'd like to check with you is your understanding of the potential importance of any of the data that might be deleted when S-Delete was run. And I want to ask you this, please. After S-Delete had been run, were you present at a meeting between UKSF and the Royal Military Police when the request by the RMP to get access to ITS1 was discussed?
I was present at a meeting, yes.
Prior to that meeting, were you aware of the RMP having an interest in the contents of the ITS1 server?
No.
Had anyone told you about a need to preserve the already deleted data on ITS1?
No. There were no instructions to go above and beyond and preserve. No. Nothing was said.
If there had been a discussion with anyone about the need to preserve already deleted data on the server, would you have run S-Delete as an application on it?
Not at all, no.
You told us that there were daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly and annual backups. And you told us a little of the different timeframes over which they are kept.
Yes.
And when we spoke about the example of retrieving a deleted file, you've taken us through that. Am I correct in understanding that if something had been deleted, it would have been possible to go back through the backups to find the deleted file?
It would be possible, yes.
It might be a very difficult job, but it's something that could be done.
Indeed.
And did you understand that backups were in place before you ran sdelete and deleted permanently any of the data on the server?
Yes, fully aware of the backup system.
Since sdelete was run, have you been asked to go back through any of the backups to recover any of the data that might have been permanently deleted?
No, I've never been asked to do that.
You told us that the backups were kept by the customer, in other words, by UKSF.
Yes.
Do you know who is responsible? And I'm not asking for a name, but do you know the identity of who might be responsible for those backups?
It's one of those chain of command things. Ultimately, somebody quite high up would have had responsibility, but that would have been delegated down through to the system manager, who would have delegated it down to, I believe it was probably a military corporal or possibly a civil servant.
Now, in terms of the system manager and the information manager, which are two different roles you've spoken of as to people that you had discussions with, are you able either to identify the names of those individuals if they appear behind our divider 1 in the red file?
Sorry, can you roll it back a bit and
Of course we
repeat,
can.
please?
My fault entirely.
Cheers. No, it's fine.
I know. You mentioned system manager and information manager as roles that existed within the customer, so roles at UKSF.
Yes.
What I'd like to ask you is this, first of all, again, I'm not asking for names. Do you recall now the names of the people or the person who occupied either of those two posts?
I recall names, yes.
Can we start with the red file for a moment? And can we try with the sheet behind divider number 1? And again, I repeat, I'm not asking you to read out any name to us. If you look to the 2 pages that are currently behind divider number 1, if you see the name of anyone that you recognise as having held the position of information manager or system manager, could you tell us you found a name and then we'll deal with it after that?
Yes, there are names.
And can I check, is it a name of an information manager, a system manager, or both?
A system manager here.
Right. And is it one name or more than one name?
Just one name here for system manager.
Can you give us, please, the N number if it's an N number, the IIA number if it's an IIA number, or the initials if it's simply initials?
Yeah, I've got N5862.
So N5862 is the system manager.
I can't remember when that person became system manager at a point in time. I can't remember when.
You told us that N5861 was also a manager, but is that in a different management role with UKSF?
Yes, that 6-1 person, that was a company manager.
So N5861, a company manager, N5862, a system manager. As to the information manager, am I right that what you've told us, you can't see the name of anyone you recall being the information manager on either of these 2 sheets?
There's a name of somebody, I think was quite high up.
Again, I don't want you to say the
No,
name.
yeah,
I'm
of
sure
course
you
it is.
won't. I'm just reminding you. As to that person that you think was quite high up in what capacity, please?
Quite high up the information management chain.
And can you give us the N number of that person, please?
I'm pretty sure that was the role of the individual. I never dealt with that person. 2311.
So N2311. In addition to those two individuals, that's N5682 and N2311, can you remember the names of anyone else, either in a system management or information management role?
Yes.
Would you be able to write the name or names down in the blue book that's available to you on your left-hand side? And before you put the pen away, can I ask you one more question in case we need to add to the list? Amongst the other management roles you've mentioned was the change manager. And
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
you haven't seen that, did you say? Do you recall the name or names of anyone in a change management position?
There are probably senior change management people here, but the person I referred to as the change manager, who I dealt with, isn't on here.
If you recall the name of that person, can you add it to the list you've just written out on the piece of paper in the blue notepad?
Sorry, people move around. I'll just write the names down, and if I've got timelines wrong, I'll apologise. That person will come back and say, it wasn't me, I wasn't that year.
Everyone understands that I've asked you a question that's not in your statement and you're doing your best to recollect it, so thank you. They are.
Can each of these notes be obviously timed and dated
Of course.
and kept, please? Thank you.
Lower level. The one we would
I've got that.
we would have dealt with.
Formally interviewed.
Somebody high up the chain.
That's the last bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I've got another one here. I think N5859 was a senior change manager.
So
That's who would have
entry
gone in.
number 6 on the piece of paper you're looking at, N5859,
That's it.
senior change manager.
I believe that individual got involved when money was required.
Was money required in the running of S-Delete or in the migration across to 3PAR?
Purchasing the 3PAR in the first place, definitely not. I don't believe actually it would have been a costed activity.
Can I take you to a different topic, please? And what I'd like to do is to ask you about events that took place a little later. And can I invite your attention in your statement to paragraph 34, please? I'd like to ask you, please, about the first meeting that you had with the RMP and when you first became aware of their interest in the contents of ITS1. When was it that you were first asked to assist in a meeting with the RMP?
I can't remember when, in all honesty. I seem to recall it being a reasonable amount of months or weeks after the courses were completed, but I haven't had access to diaries or emails.
When you say the courses, are you referring to the 3-PAR course you attended
Yes.
between the 23rd and the 27th of May of 2016?
Yes, it would
So-
have been, it wasn't too close to that. It would have been a month or from that, I believe.
And if we can fix it any more accurately than that, by the time of the meeting with the RMP, had S-Delete been run on the ITS1 server?
Yeah, definitely been run before they turned up.
And had the migration from ITS1 to 3PAR been concluded by that point?
No, that hadn't been concluded.
Had it been started?
No.
Can we just have your help then, please, with the meeting that you were asked to attend with the RMP? Had officers from the RMP attended the UK SF4 location?
Yes, that's where I met them.
And from what you understood, what was the purpose of their visit, please?
Okay. Sorry, I'm digging at a just IIA 101 escorted the 3 members of the RMP into a breakout meeting room near to the location I worked. 101 then approached myself and my colleague, not 5858. IIA 11.
Thank you.
So myself and 11 went in the breakout room with 101, 3 RMP, and we were introduced to the people and what the topic of the meeting was.
What was the topic of the meeting, please?
The topic of the meeting was for us to provide technical, I want to get the right word, technical support to the RMP so they could understand ITS1 with respect to data and where data is stored. The RMP briefed that they had an interest in looking at the data for the purposes of what was introduced to us at the time as Operation Northmoor.
Had you ever heard the phrase Operation Northmoor before?
No, certainly not.
Did you know what it was about?
Not until they explained it.
In terms of their interest in the data from ITS1, were they interested in all the data, parts of the data, or were they even able to specify precisely what they wanted to look at?
They specified timeframes of, it's probably in there anyway, 2010 to 2013. They specified a location, namely a country, which may be an error.
It's all right, the country is Afghanistan, so...
Of course. They specified the country, the time frame. They didn't specify the type of data, but it was data the users would have saved. Possibly emails, possibly Word documents.
Did you discuss with the RMP the transfer of data from ITS1 to 3PAR?
Not initially. I mean, what we were asked to provide was a technical breakdown of ITS1, what type of data it holds, where it's held, and the volume or quantity of data, because the RMP expressed an interest in taking away a copy of data so they could analyse it, look for whatever they wanted to look for. So their view was, how much is it? What device do they need to bring to take away? Do they need a stack of floppy disks, USB drives, hard drives, a truck full of kit? That's the route the conversation went down.
And at its most basic level, in terms of copying the data, is that something that could have been done for them?
Yes, we discussed different methods of extracting the data to make available for them.
It may be a difficult question to answer, and please tell me if it is, but could you give us some idea of how long it might have taken to copy all the data so that they could walk away with their own copy of it?
Possibly 2 or 3 working days.
Would that have had any impact on the operational workings of the system while such a copy was being taken?
Yes, if the copy was coming from the live data, yes. If they were, for example, restoring a backup onto an area, yes, it would have impacted the operational system. Yes, whichever way you go, the disks are going to be spinning like mad and slowing down everybody else's service.
If we leave the live server for a moment and just think about the backup, if there was a backup that was available from the week or the month before, would it have been possible to have used that backup to create an entire copy of what was on the system at the time that backup had been taken?
Entire copy of the user data, yes, I think so.
Was that discussed with the 3 members of the RMP who were present at this meeting?
I can't remember exactly detailed. We discussed the live data where it lived. We discussed the backups and their existence. Then from memory, I think 101 reappeared. A busy individual, very good at their job. They had to disappear off. I think they came back and suggested one option could be wait a number of weeks till the migration to 3PAR had been concluded, and then they could have simply taken what we refer to as data storage 1, the original storage.
Was any timeline given other than a number of weeks?
Sorry?
Was any time frame given as to how long they might need to wait beyond a number of weeks?
No, I wasn't involved in the fine details of when the migration to 3PAR would have been.
Was there any discussion about the fact that S-delete had been run on the server by this stage?
Yes, I distinctly remember this piece because the 3 RMP, getting towards the end of the meeting, the 3 RMP said, oh, we'll probably be back in a couple of weeks with disks, drives, whatever, to extract some data, maybe not all of it, but some. And when they would come back, they would possibly run some forensic recovery tools on the data set. And specifically, the term undelete was used, which is a term which was known to me as a tool which can look at deleted files and recover them.
Would it be possible to recover files that have been deleted using the sdelete application?
Short answer, no. Very difficult, I would suggest. Sdelete zeroes out the disk. Doesn't leave much to recover from. Yes, if you get the boffins at the national agencies we have and throw them at the task, they may be able to assist, but it's a losing battle.
And as best as you can recollect, were the 3 members of the RMP content with the information they received from you about making available what was going to be the old server once the migration had been complete?
I think so. Yeah, I think that line was I think 101 led with that discussion.
Was any concern raised by anyone on behalf of the RMP about the fact that sdelete had been run on the server?
The person who told me that they were likely to be running the undelete tool, after he was informed that sdelete's been run in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I think his response was to shrug his shoulders and say, well, there's no point us doing that then.
Were you part of any other meetings or discussions with anyone from the RMP other than this one?
No.
And were you asked to assist UKSF in transferring data onto any form of system which would enable the RMP to take it away?
No.
Were you asked to assist UKSF to make the original server available for anyone from RMP to collect if they wanted it?
I think I'd moved on from the team by the time the migration to 3PAR took place. So I don't think it would have been under my remit to preserve that old data store one. But certainly my colleagues, or my former colleagues, between them at a lower level and 101 at a management level, they ensured that the former storage, data store one, was alive and healthy and available to be taken for any subsequent investigation.
Now, you've just indicated that you weren't sure that you were still there. When we first spoke about your period working for this particular civilian contractor company, we'd identified it as 2014 to 2017.
Yes.
Do you remember when it was, roughly, in 2017 that you moved on to work for someone else?
Halfway through the year, end of June, I'm fairly certain.
Do you remember whether anyone from UKSF contacted you either after this meeting with the RMP or after you left working for this particular company to ask you about what had happened with sdelete?
Yes, I do remember being contacted by the customer.
Can we just go back to the red file together for a moment, please? If you look behind divider number 1 to that first page and to run your finger down to entry number 8, you see an entry along the end number N5859.
Seen, yes.
Can I ask you, please, did you speak to that individual about what had happened with Estelite?
I did speak to that individual, yes.
What was it that that individual wanted to know from you, please?
It was briefed to me that there was a concern from the RMP that the use of Estelite had hindered their investigation and potentially deleted data. This individual was tasked to carry out what was called a unit-level investigation to establish the facts of what had gone on.
And as part of his establishing of the facts, did he conduct an interview with you?
Yes, there was an interview conducted.
And was that interview recorded either digitally or in writing?
I believe in writing. I don't recall any digital recording type thing.
After the interview, did you ever see either a transcript or a summary of the interview, or did you see a note that related to what you'd said in that interview?
No, I didn't see anything further.
Were you ever asked to sign anything to confirm what you had said was accurate?
I honestly can't remember, to be honest. No. Possibly, but I just can't remember.
When you spoke to that individual, N5895, about the S-delete process that had been undertaken on the server, did you explain to that individual how S-delete worked?
Yeah, I would have done, yes.
Did you explain to that individual about the course that you'd undertaken by the company that provided the 3-pass storage system?
Yes, we covered all this, yes.
And did you talk to that individual about any discussions that had taken place prior to running S-delete on the server?
I can only really remember the technical aspects of the discussion. I can't remember who spoke to who and when. I recall 5858 was asked to come and discuss with 5595, and 5861 also was involved in the discussions, whether they were interviewed or formally or informally, I can't tell you.
Just sticking with your interview for a moment, when you were interviewed by N5859, did that person ask you whether you had discussed the use of S-delete with anyone in UKSF?
I can't remember, to be honest.
Were you asked whether a ticket had been raised?
Oh yeah, we discussed tickets, yes. Pretty sure we did. We would have done. A ticket was our top cover.
Did you need to explain to N5595 how the ticketing process worked, or did that person already understand it?
I think they already understood it.
Did you help N5595 with the names of any of the people from UKSF, either the system manager or the information manager, that you spoke to about the use of S-delete?
I'm pretty sure I would have done, yes.
Do you remember whether you were asked who did you discuss this with in UKSF?
I can't remember, to be honest. Some time back, clearly.
Of course. But to the best of your recollection, you believe you did discuss with N5595 about people within UKSF that you had spoken to?
Yeah, definitely, because it was pretty much a full investigation of what had gone on from day one to day whatever. And those, yeah, they wanted to confirm that I didn't know anything about Northmore. That was one of the lines of inquiry they made with me.
Was it suggested that you'd done anything wrong?
Not by 5595, but I think the tone of the request from the RMP suggested that there had potentially been something wrongdoing.
Were any questions asked of you about why you had run a program to delete data without getting permission to do so?
No, because the permission was through the ticketing system. The authority to proceed was within that.
Allow me just to check something. And it's clearly a matter that's important to you because you identified it within your conclusion. And can I just simply assist you with it to this extent? You have made it very clear to us and to others that the running of SDelete only deleted already deleted data.
Correct.
So in answer to the allegation or the accusation that you have had anything to do with the wiping of a server or the deletion of live data, is the simple to answer is that I've had absolutely nothing to do with that because SDelete doesn't work that way.
That's it. Yeah, correct understanding.
So thank you very much for your help, and I appreciate we sat on a little longer. So can I turn to you for a moment and check, do you have any questions, please, for N5857?
I don't, Mr. Glasgow, thank you.
So I'm going to look to the time, and I'm in your hands. I've not had an opportunity to speak. I'm so sorry. Mr. Polnay, as ever, is ahead of me. The idea now is rather than embark on N5858 and not finish his evidence, with your blessing, he's been told he can come tomorrow. I thought he was going to come tomorrow at 2 o'clock, but it seems that he is able to be with us tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, which means we can continue in the order as planned, and I'm extremely grateful for the assistance with that.
Indeed. No, thank you, Mr. Glasgow. The plan is that we will reconvene at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning with N5858, and then hear the subsequent witnesses, which will be Mr. Pridden, at 11 or later. So we'll continue on track.
So thank you.
Thank you. Can I thank you very much indeed for coming to give your evidence, and you are free to go.
Thank you, sir.
Good. 10 o'clock tomorrow, please. Thank you.